One common crowbar that can split any relationship is when people don't take responsibility or ownership of their happy. When people in the relationship are miserable and they're doing nothing about it, right? So I was this person in my late 20s, early 30s. I was unhappy, and I brought that into the relationship. And I thought, if you're unhappy and you go down, your partner goes down with you, and vice versa, because I thought that was romantic. I thought that's what love was about. We're in this together. And I realized much later that that's unhealthy, and you don't take hostages. And that's what I did. I would come into spaces negative, and because I was unhappy with my own life, that would bring my partner down as well. And if you're living with someone, they have nowhere to go. So you're hijacking their space, Anyway, let's talk about happy. First, I don't really like that word. I think it could be a bumper sticker. I think it's plastic. I think it's slippery. And I think that we live in a world where people think you get to this island known as happy, and once you get there, it's all good and everything's okay, And it's not like that. I think that life is up and down, and some days you're happy, some days you're not. It's cumulative, right? So let's start with a reframe. Not even use the word happy. The word that I would like to use is meaning, to build a meaningful life. After my divorce and when I was starting over, that's the question I asked myself. I said, what would it look like to finally build a life that has meaning? Because before I was chasing happy. And when you think about the word happy and you think, okay, what makes me happy? It was a lot of things, It was objects. It was things that were external, and those things don't make you happy. At least, in the long run, they don't make you happy. But then when I started to say, how can I inject more meaning into my life? How can I hang my life on meaning? Now I'm thinking about how I can be of service. Right now I'm thinking about things greater than me. Now I'm thinking about how can the universe use me as a conduit. So I can share my unique gifts and contribute something to the world, right? Because that would be meaningful. So here's how I started to build happy, or more accurately, a more meaningful life. I'm going to break it down into three sections. One is your gifts and being of service in this world, right? Two is your relationship with self. And then the third piece is acquiring a lot of tools, right? Having practices that you don't just do on the weekend or once or after a seminar, after you've walked on fire and you're super excited about your new life. These are tools that you just throw into your life as a daily practice, like eating better or like working out, right? It's something that is a lifestyle. And so we'll go over some of those tools. Going back to number one, your gifts and services. What you do is greater than who you love. And so I think we live in a world where we're obsessed with finding, quote unquote, the one, or, the perfect partner. And what's more important is actually where you're going, not who you're going with. So number one should be, where are you going? And then who are you going with? And if you reverse that order, you're going to be going alone. Does that make sense? I used to believe that, or I used to have it backwards. I used to focus on who am I going with, and then I'll think about where I'm going. And it doesn't work that way. So the first thing is, where are you going? And so what I mean by that is, what are you passionate about? What are your gifts? What are you contributing to the world? How is what you're doing bigger than you? And to feed that, and because that's going to be meaningful. I had a lot of jobs where I punched the clock and tucked my shirt in and worked in spaces that were, driven by fear and a boss with an iron fist. I remember I was working in a treatment center where I was, and it was a shady treatment center, but I would have to write my name down to sign out to go to the bathroom, like that kind of place, right? And I remember in the bathroom stall, and this was my bathroom moment. I was literally in the bathroom. I remember just crying. I was at a shitty place in my life. My marriage was falling apart. And I was working this job because I thought it would save my marriage. I had to bring in some kind of income. And here I was in the bathroom stall, head against the wall, and just like, rock bottom. Hated being there. 6 hours was like, I would wake up every morning just dreading to go into this space to work. Definitely wasn't meaningful. And after that, after I left that job, I started a blog. I started to create some creative spaces. I started to allow myself to be more me in work, right? So working in ways that felt honest to me. I started to meet people in coffee shops. I started to write again. And that felt good. And that felt like it felt empowered, I felt like when I was working in the treatment center, I was pushing a mail cart. And then when I was doing my own thing, playing with my Legos, as I call it, I felt like I had a cape. And so I started feeding that. And I started getting obsessed about that. I'm an Aries. I'm a very obsessive person. Once I get into things, I lose myself in them. And sometimes in relationships as well. And I started getting obsessed with writing and blogging, answering questions, how I can help people, and also working in unconventional ways. And that became the fire in my belly. And once I started to put a lot of effort into that, a life started to appear. I had a reason to wake up in the morning, and I wasn't just focused on shiny things anymore. I was starting to feed my passions. And what happens is you start to live a life that's inside out instead of outside in. So my 20s and 30s, my life was very outside in, meaning wanting things outside of self because I thought that's what success looked like. So whether that was, a beautiful wife or a fancy car or the house in the hills or some kind of lucrative deal, those things, those are the things that I was chasing. Hit pause on life until I got those things. And because I never got those things, I never really lived. My life was on pause. And so after my divorce, I was like, okay, I'm going to build a life that is more filled with meaning instead of just me trying to chase happy, right? And so getting obsessed with this craft of helping people in the way that was honest to me, in writing, blogging, also getting active on social media, videos and stuff like that. It felt empowering and I felt good. And that started to turn into a life, right? So now I had a sense of where I was going, and that's what was on the high shelf. That's what I held with two hands. And I started to build a life, or in this case, build happy around that. Now, of course, when you are getting up every day and doing something that really fulfills you, and of course, there's a bridge that's required to get there. Many of us can't just afford to quit our jobs and follow our quote unquote dreams or our passion. We need a plan, because we have mouths to feed, we've got bills to pay, and so creating that bridge, that was fun for me. For me, that was just getting lost in articles and content and creating, and it connected me to the part of me that I locked away when I quit screenwriting. And so that eventually turned into writing self-help books and other things, and still to today, including this podcast. It fires me up. It fills me up when I do this. And so that was the beginning, and that's kind of part one. Part two is your relationship with yourself. So while I was doing this, I got to know me. I spent a lot of time alone. I mean, it was a stretch of probably like 4 years, and I dated here and there, but I was predominantly alone. I didn't isolate though. I found fitness found a CrossFit community. So that was killing two birds. One, it was social, and then it was just this new way of working out, which I was really obsessed with, movement and functional fitness and all that stuff. I was very curious on how far I could push my body, and I started to get kind of obsessive about that. And then there's a chapter in my book, Single on Purpose, where I say that I found myself through barbells, donuts, and motorcycles. And it's true, you know, I didn't have anything. That's all I had. I had access to a gym with barbells, and I found myself through that because I pushed myself, probably the hardest I've ever pushed myself in my life, and developed a new relationship with self, dissolved a lot of false beliefs, right? All that stuff, that whole journey, the fitness journey. And then riding my motorcycle all over LA, meeting people in coffee shops, but also just like hugging canyons in Malibu. There's nothing more beautiful than watching a sunset with a gas tank in between your legs. I mean, assuming you're moving. Yeah, the beach a lot, PCH, all of that. And then donuts, right? I didn't just binge on donuts, but every Friday, I was working at nonprofit, in nonprofit at the time. Lots of lifers there. I call them lifers because it's one of those jobs where you know, the benefits are so good, like the insurance donut, that you kind of stay, but you also, you stay too long, and it's like being in a relationship where nothing's really wrong, but also it's not exciting, it's not what you really want, but it's just kind of comfortable. And the danger of those kind of jobs is that you become a lifer. You never really leave because it's not that bad, but it's also not great. It's just kind of lukewarm, you know. Anyway, lots of lifers there. And I would bring in a box of donuts every Friday, or some kind of pastry or something good that we could all just kind of treat ourselves with. And that was the beginning of me finding, seeking nectar in my life, and experiencing joy that isn't dependent on someone's yes or no, right? Or you winning the lottery, but something as simple as a donut or listening to audio on a walk. I used to go to the beach a lot and just run, you know, things that didn't cost a lot of money, but made you mindful and appreciate what was right under your nose. So I just simplified my life, and that connected me to myself as I was creating content and writing and doing all those things. And then as far as dating goes, I said, you know what, I'm going to date against my type. I'm going to explore. I'm going to use dating as a vehicle to stretch myself, instead of just trying to find the one, you know, or trying to find my next forever, because there's a lot of pressure with that, and there's no growth in that. And usually when you're just looking for the one and you've got this checklist in your hand, you're probably going to just repeat patterns, you know. And so I wanted to do some crazy shit. I wanted to wake up with someone I didn't like. I've never had a one-night stand. I wanted to do that. I wanted to do drugs with someone in the shower. You know, I just wanted to go, not crazy, but I wanted to experiment and stretch and just give myself a lot of new experiences. So that was the mindset there. And then the third piece is tools. We need tools to be happy. We need tools that are going to help us just maneuver through life, and so we're not dipping into lower frequencies. So here's a few tools. One, practicing the art of producing joy. And so, like I was just saying before, whether it's a barbell, donut, or motorcycle, finding life in your life instead of waiting and hoping for something else to come and then you're going to live, right? Which is most of my 20s and 30s. Finding life in your life. So wherever you're at right now, even if you're in a bad place and you don't have a lot, what do you have? You know, where can you find joy in your life right now? Because you can. It's possible. You have to simplify. You have to seek moments. a wind or a light breeze on my back, sun on my face, something good to eat. That those are the kind of things that brought me joy when I was going through my rebirth. So the art of producing joy and doing that daily, knowing that it's a practice and it's going to be a tool. The practice of staying out of fight or flight. One of the reasons why I was so unhappy was because I always thought the sky was falling. I was maneuvering in worry and dread, and every day it was just always fight or flight. My life was a giant panic button. And you can't be happy when you're in that state, And also, if you're in a relationship, that's what you're bringing to the table. You're activating your partner's fight or flight, right? So being aware of your fight or flight, even if it's subtle, and trying to live on a higher frequency. Some of the higher frequencies are love, gratitude, hope, creativity. That's one of my favorites. What else are higher frequencies to live on? One second while I take a little sip of coffee, and I promise I'll stay away from the microphone. I know you didn't sign up for what is it called? ASMR, or all these weird things people are doing with sound and mics. The 5 seconds of dopamine after pushing yourself hard physically and you're leaving a sweat angel on the floor, right? Those kind of moments. Oh wait, that's producing joy. I'm sorry, we're talking about higher frequencies. Well, that could also be a higher frequency too, for sure. But the lower frequencies that I used to live in, and as I say these, think about how often you're in this state during the week. Dread, worry, always in my head, thinking about the past, obsessing about the future, playing back old shit, right? Wishing things were different, all of that. Anger, jealousy, not necessarily of my partner, but like the people around me that were becoming successful. Living in LA, just grew up with a lot of people who were at the right place at the right time, and suddenly they're, buying mansions and shit. Jealousy, envy, just really lower frequency states. And so that was my go-to, that was my day-to-day. And so, of course I wasn't happy. Of course I was miserable. And then the final thing is, and of course there's more tools. I just picked these 3 or 4 as kind of your primary colors or the foundation. The practice of not tying anything external to your worth. So tying what you do to your worth, who you love, what you drive, where you live, like anything external, tying that to your worth makes you powerless. And if that external thing is something that goes away, then suddenly you're going to feel that you're worth less, right? So actively building your relationship with self, and at the same time not tying your worth to the external, the outside stuff, the work, the accomplishments, the deals, the scoreboard, whatever, all of that, although important, they are separate. They are outside of self. It's not tied to who you are and your value. And I know it's easier said than done, but really trying to live that way and daily reminding yourself and convincing yourself of that. So that was a huge piece. Anyway, I was going to say I'm sorry this is a long one, but you know what? I'm not sorry, because hopefully this has given you something to think about. And I've been getting some requests to be more thorough and talk more in my podcast. I have no problem talking. I could talk all day. I just don't know if any of the conversation will be of value. Hopefully it will, or it will be, or what's the point? Okay, so remember, if you choose to love someone, or you don't, you're responsible for your own happiness, and that happy is built. And also to stay away from the word happy, to build a life of meaning. And I went through some of the steps that I did to get there. Thank you for listening.